Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Knowledge at Noon. This event is called Practical Approaches to Implementing GenAI in Workplace Teams. My name is Jonathan Henry, and I'm joined today by Dr. Lawrence Gray here. Hi, Dr. Gray. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful as always.
So, let me give you a little brief introduction before we stand it over this. Dr. Gray is first a subject matter expert in things like and within data analytics. I would know because I've learned Python from him, and then also Gen AI, other forms of AI, and so forth. So, I'm very impressed with it. And then so. You are also the program director and instructor for our data analytics, data-driven, that's one's data-driven decision making, as well as our Gen I for team productivity. And so, last but not least, Dr. Gray has his Ph.D. in cellular and molecular physiology from Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. And then from the bio I have of you, you have initiatives like NumFocus and open source software package Yellowbrick. So without further ado, and please fill in all the gaps and everything like that. I'd like to turn this over to Dr. Lawrence Gray, STEAM instructor here at Georgetown University. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. I think this is the second or third one of these I've done, and it's always been a pleasure. But good afternoon to everyone, and welcome to this Knowledge at Noon. As Jonathan explained, this is about practical approaches to implementing Gen AI in workplace teams, and it's kind of about beyond the hype. And so for the next 30 minutes, I'm going to guide you through and explore how effectively implementing Gen AI tools in the workplace setting and how that works. But just a little before we dive in, I just want to say that the emphasis of this session is designed to be immediately practical. So my goal is for you to walk away with specific techniques and approaches you can start using today. All right. A bit about my background, in addition to what Jonathan was saying, I've been working in AI for the past 12 years, building tools, actually developing AI tools. So before AI became really, really cool, I was already doing it and developing tools for all sorts of businesses. My background comes in from AI consulting, actually helping businesses incorporate AI into their workflows, to geospatial intelligence, to working with KPMG, the Big Four accounting firm, doing AI with them. Um, so I've had this front row seat of how AI works. And there's this big boom of the use of generative AI, which is only a small portion of AI as we know it, but it's been synonymous nowadays. When people say AI, they're thinking of generative AI. But that's enough about me. Let's talk about what matters to you and how these tools, the generative AI tools, can help you make a tangible difference in your day-to-day work. Okay. So here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to get a clear definition of what generative AI actually is and how it works, because understanding the basics kind of help us use these tools more efficiently. And then we'll explore real-world applications across three key areas. So we'll talk about content creation, and content creation is the first immediate use that most people have for generative AI. We'll talk about aspects of meeting efficiency and also data analysis. I'm going to go over prompting techniques. So prompting is the actual act of asking a generative AI tool to perform some sort of action. And then I will go over some of the best practices whenever you're prompting. And all of this is designed to give you like a practical toolkit for implementing Gen AI effectively in your teams. And finally, we'll come across one particular, it says pitfalls, but there's one in particular that I wanted to discuss, and that's hallucinations. And this is when Gen AI starts making up things for you and presents it as factual or confident information that is very confident about telling you. So by quick thumbs up with your emoji thumb up button, how many people have used tools like ChatGPT or Claude already, or Gemini or Midjourney or any of these other Gen AI tools? Just thumbs up. So, Melinda, you have a question, or is that or just waving? Okay. All right. So, let's start with the fundamentals. So, generative AI refers to artificial intelligence systems that create new content based on patterns that they've learned from existing data. So, these systems can generate text, image, audio, code. Increasingly, you start seeing it generate video and other media types. The most widely used examples today include these what we call large language models like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and they're used for text generation, but they're becoming multimodal, meaning they can do video also and images uh, also. But then there's tools like DALL-E, Midjourney, and Stable Diffusion that are image centric, and they're really good at generating images. Right. Um, and what really makes these tools revolutionary for workplace productivity is their ability to understand and respond to natural language inputs. You don't need technical expertise to use them effectively. You just need to know how to communicate your needs clearly, which is what we'll focus on today. How do you communicate clearly? So, in order to use these tools effectively, it helps to understand a bit about how they work. So large language models like ChatGPT are trained on massive data sets. This is text from internet, books, articles, and other sources. And so during this training or this period where they're learning, they learn patterns and relationships between words, concepts, and ideas. So whenever you go to a LLM and you enter a prompt or a question or a statement, uh, the model, the LLM, will calculate a probability for what should come next based on what it's seen during whenever it was learning. So when it was learning, it was given all this text um, based on that information and the patterns that it learned. It's going to give you a probability of what comes next. So, for instance, if you were to type in into a LLM, the capital of France is blank, what the model would do, it would assign a high probability, in this case, to Paris, and lower probabilities to other possibilities, such as Helsinki, right? So, this probability-based approach is all that it does. There's what is the next possible or probable word, and what's the next probable word after that, and keeps building and building, right? That's all it knows how to do. And this probability based approach really explains both the strengths and the limitations of these tools. So they're not retrieving facts from a database, right? They're predicting what text will likely follow your input based on patterns. And so this is why there's sometimes confidently they will confidently present incorrect information or what we call hallucination. They will hallucinate these facts that seem plausible but aren't accurate, right? And so, because of this, there's this inherent tension between creativity and factual accuracy whenever LLM gives you its output. And so this trade-off is often controlled by a setting inside of the LLM called temperature. And this is available in most AI interfaces. So low temperatures, which will range, and this isn't the case for all LLMs, but from 0 to zero point 0.3, it produces more deterministic and factual and predictable responses, right? This is ideal for tasks like that require accuracy, like if you're creating technical documentation or you're presenting, trying to create factual summaries. You would actually set this setting to be low in between this range. Well, the present case for most things, when you by default, the temperature setting within your LLM of choice is generally set at medium. It's between zero point 0.4 and zero point 0.7. And what this does, it kind of balances creativity with accuracy. And so this works very well with business writing, where you do need some level of creative variation, but you're also worried about maintaining reasonable accuracy, right? And then we have the high temperature range. This generates great variety, right? It's creative and sometimes produces unexpected output. And this is great for brainstorming, creative writing, or for generating diverse alternatives. And understanding these trade-offs gives you an important control lever when working with these tools. So you can deliberately adjust the settings based on whether tasks require more creativity, or more factual accuracy, right? And we're going to look at an example of this in ChatGPT. So I'm going to pull up this window. Let's see what we get here. And I already input the prompt. So we're in ChatGPT, and I write a short introduction paragraph for a company blog post about remote work productivity tools. And so I'm also asking it with two different temperature settings. You want to do this with two different temperature settings. And I'm asking it to bold the first two sentences of each paragraph so we don't have to read everything. So if the ChatGPT sets its own temperature to zero point 0.3, right? It's expecting that you would get a more formal, factual, and neutral response. So what does this read like? So remote work has become a staple of modern business operations. As teams increasingly collaborate across time zones and locations, the right productivity tools are critical for maintaining efficiency and cohesion. Very factual, kind of monotone, but it presents information, very factual, more formal information. Versus, let's turn up the temperature to zero point 0.8, you get more conversational, creative, and expressive. And it's hard for me to read this like I read the other one, just because the way it's written. It's like remote work, it isn't just a trend, it's a transformation. With team chats replacing water cooler talk and digital dashboards standing in for conference rooms. Staying productive requires the right tools. It becomes more conversational. It's a little bit more expressive. And so you can change the way that your LLM, in this case, responds to you. So. So that's just an example of temperature. So I don't know how many people already knew that that was an option or setting in there. And there's other settings that are available. There's a P factor. There's other settings that you can set within your LLM that allow you to have some control of how it responds. So it takes away a lot of the randomness. If you want to get the most probably factual response, or the response that is the most probable answer, set it down to 0. You would get the most probable answer that the LLM knows. So Okay. We can't talk about what it is by without talking about what Gen AI is not. So before we go further, it's important to understand that what these tools can't do, right? Gen AI is not human level intelligence. It doesn't truly understand or know facts the way that humans do. It's pattern matching at unprecedented scale, but it's not reasoning in the way that we do it. So these tools can't reliably reason without carefully structured prompting, and they're not reliably factual on their own. So they can be confident and present incorrect information if that information aligns with patterns that is learned during its training. Um, they're not replacements for human judgment. And this is something that I like to point out, even for myself. It's so easy to get into the lull of something giving you very correct information to just kind of automatically accept that information. But this isn't a replacement for your human judgment. All right. I do a lot of programming, computer programming, and about 20% of the time it's incorrect. It just gives you incorrect information. Right. And also, despite sometimes it appears to be magical, right? Um, it's not. They follow predictable patterns and have clear limitations. So I don't want you to think that just by understanding these constraints, this doesn't diminish the value of these tools. These tools are very powerful. It's about using them appropriately and effectively. So the most successful implementations combine AI capabilities with human oversight and expertise. So let's look at some specific workplace applications, starting with content creation. And so, as I was saying before, this is often the first productivity areas that teams explore with Gen AI. So, in traditional workflows, content creation involves hours of drafting emails, reports, and documentations. And what you see happening, if it's not put in place, teams often struggle with inconsistent messaging across different writers. Um, and also, we've all experienced, the dreaded writer's block when you're just kind of staring at a blank page, right? This is what Gen AI is to help you get those creative juices going. So, but with like effective Gen AI implementations, teams can generate first drafts in minutes instead of hours. They can establish template prompts. So, and templating meaning that you create a way in which you will decide that you will create your prompts so that you get consistent messaging regardless of the who's using the AI tool. So you give it to several writers, they have a template and they use that in order to generate information. So there's consistency in your messaging. Um, and so what it also does, it kind of shifts human effort from initial creation to more refinement and personalization. Right? So the key here is that humans still review, still edit, and still personalize the content. We're not replacing human creators. We're augmenting their capabilities, allowing them to focus on higher value aspects of communication. So effective content prompts. So the difference between effective and ineffective prompts are the way that you talk to your LLM. It's dramatic. Let's look at these concrete examples, right? And I tell you this before, I'm going to show you the basic and effective. And I do not follow these 100% of the time myself because I get lazy and I just want it to give me an answer without having to type a lot. But I always come back to this because it always gives you, by using these techniques, you always get better refined, better responses from the LLM. So a basic response on a level would be write a customer email about our software update, right? That's a basic prompt. A more effective prompt would be the one on the right. where you're asking the LLM to act like a customer success manager. You want it to write to enterprise clients. You want it to draft a professional email about specific software updates and a specific version of that software update. And then it goes through and talks about the different things that it should do. Right. So in contrast, like the basic prompt doesn't almost gives no guidance. It doesn't specify the audience, any key information, the tone it should take, the format it should produce. And so if you were to do this, you would get a very, very generic response that requires a lot of editing. So put that in contrast, the effective prompt, uh, it actually states the role the AI should adopt, in this case, the customer success manager. It says its audience, which is the enterprise clients. It gives it specific content requirements, right? Here it talks about uh, the announcement date, some key features that it wants to highlight, telling it it should link to some specific notes, and even gives it constraints like you want this to be under 250 words. So this level of specificity produces output that requires minimal editing and aligns precisely with your needs, right? And these techniques apply to virtually any content creation task, from emails to reports to social media to marketing materials. So another high impact application that we have is for meeting efficiency. And so we all know the challenges of being in the meeting, right? I think Harvard Business Review reported that professionals on average spend like 23 hours a week in a meeting, right? Uh, and meetings still tend to be very ineffective. And so there comes the ability to utilize Gen AI in that capacity. And for instance, with meeting summary prompts, like you write a prompt, in this case, where we're again stating what in the blue here, what the LLM should be doing, or who the LLM is acting like. So in this prompt, it says, you are an expert meeting assistant. And based on these raw meeting notes, create a concise summary that does very specific things, right? Um, and with this, what you're doing in this prompt, you're doing role assignment. Right? You're telling the LLM exactly what role they should be taking. You're giving it clear instructions on what to do. You even specify the format in which you want the output to be in. And then in this case, um, they mention headings and bullet points for readability, right? Um, And then the other workplace use of Gen AI, which I have an example of this, is the data analysis prompt. And so with data analysis, um, it takes on the same role that if you see this the same thing over and over, you have role assignment, clear instructions, format requests. You have this pattern whenever you're deciding on this prompt, right? And in this case, because this would take a while to do, I put in my prompt here, the prompt. And what it does is, in this case, it generated the data that I want to use. It breaks down trends and patterns. Uh, it tells us, uh, it analyzes the data and tells us concerning metrics. So you can actually use your real data. Sometimes you want to be cautious about this because some companies don't allow for you to provide this information directly to the LLM, but there's workarounds for that so that you're able to use it. But it makes analysis about the data and what it might mean, and provides interpretations for it. It can go even as far as start generating graphics for it to explain the results that it's getting. But the key thing here to note is that um, these prompting techniques take on a role assignment. It delivers clear instructions. It has a format request uh, embedded into it. So there's a framework that I like to use called Wiser. And it kind of, what we were seeing before was a variation of this. But whenever you're writing your prompts, you won't specify who defines the role of the AI. You provide clear directions, your instructions, and follow that up by the S part, which is subtasks, which you break down complex tasks into individual parts. Then you provide examples of what you think it should look like what would a good response look like, and then you finally follow that up with your own review and help to improve the output. So uh, in this case here, um, an example of this framework would be the WHO act as an experienced project manager, the instructions and subtasks, create a project kickoff document and include these steps, and then give it examples and review. Format this similarly to previous kickoff website design project, right? So having this framework, and again, this slide deck will be made available to you also, so you can go into further detail. But let's talk about other techniques that we can use that will help you when you're just prompting day to day. Um, there's three of them that I'm going to share with you. The first one's called chain of thought prompting. And this is a way to get your LLM to solve complex problems. And so what you end up doing is you ask your AI to show its reasoning step by step, right? So you can give it a complex prompt, but at the end of it, you said, let's think through this step by step, right? And it will start breaking things down. And this results in more logical, uh, less logical errors in your work. And so it breaks it down and makes less errors in doing this. And the other example that we have is called zero shot and few shot. So zero shot prompting is a technique where you just basically, and this is what everyone does. You just say, in this case, classify the following customer feedback as positive, negative, or neutral, right? And you give it the feedback that you want, right? Right. And says, I've been using this for a month. While there's a learning curve, it's powerful once you understand it. Right. And you wait for the um, LLM to give you a response. Well, there's something called few shot prompting that ends up giving you more nuanced results. And few shot prompting, you classify the following. What you would do, you would say, classify the following customer feedback as positive, negative, or neutral. And the trick here is to actually provide examples of what you consider to be positive, negative, or neutral. So you give it examples, like this is a positive response, this is a negative, and then finally you ask the question that you want. Now classify this here, right? Its response is going to be a little bit more nuanced, and it's more than likely to give you a response that more uh, jives with what your expectations of these different states to be. And let's see. So we can just see, all right, the customer feedback in this case is positive, right? Let's see what happens if we do few shot prompting. Right? It comes up with the same answer. Um, and explain both of them explain why. But this approach will help you build more nuanced responses in what you're doing. Right? So if you have examples of what you want to achieve, it's always good to include those, and it helps give an answer more suited to your needs. Right. And let's see here. All right. And the last thing that I wanted to cover is avoiding hallucinations. So this is a common pitfall. Um, LLMs uh, make mistakes. They're horrible at citations. So if you ask LLM to cite the work that they where they got that information from, more likely they can't tell you, or they if they do tell you that citation doesn't even exist, they made it up. Um, you can get a little reprieve from that now that most LLMs, the major companies, have access to the web. So they can access the web and look up citations for you. And they also generally have deep research capabilities now that allow you to provide citations for the work that you're doing. But this is all in hope because LLMs do make up information. So you have to be cautious of that. And you have to verify key facts. This can be very, very powerful. LLMs can be very, very powerful for those that have domain expertise because you can quickly identify things that are incorrect. Um, but you always should verify key facts, do that independently of the LLM. And so there's other ways to do it, and there's other techniques now in which you can actually take specific documents that you want the LLM to reference from and to use as a source of information that will increase the LLM's ability to produce truthful information. And so you see the advent of that happening a lot. I know in Claude, you can have a knowledge base where you provided documents that you consider to be truthful and where the LLM should search for information prior to generating it on its own. So, and as always, human review is still essential for critical content. All right. I think that's pretty much it. I'm trying to make sure I didn't jump over anything, but J Jonathan, I can kick it back over to you and maybe we can take some questions.
All right. Okay, so I'm gonna come right back in here. Okay. All right. And so I'm gonna stop the screen share for just 1 second.
Okay.
All right. So first off, I want to say thank you very much for this presentation on here. Um, very interesting. Uh, I'm still trying to like, it's very exciting. I kind of want to like go back and like do some of this prompting myself. But anyway, so thank you again. We had some questions along the way that we'll get through here in a second. But before we turn into our Q&A, I want to do a little promotion here. So let's see here, share screen, and then what I'm gonna do here is let's see, slideshow. Here we go. Okay, so everyone, here is if you like what you saw today, if you If you like this presentation, these are kind of based, they give you a taste of, in some ways, of the certificate offerings we do here. So at Georgetown University School of Continuing Studies, we do professional certificates. They're for professional development in areas of like things from like project management is the typical one, to things within data analytics, data science. We have things in health, coaching, executive coaching, and so on. So we have Dr. Gray will be starting up here June 3rd here for the certificate in Gen AI for team productivity. And is there anything here you'd like to say about the next class start here?
It's going to be fun. We talk a lot. It's based on a lot of your experience at your own job and kind of bringing that into the classroom. You'd be surprised uh, how people are using Gen AI so differently from each other, or the different types of problems that they're trying to apply it to. And so just to know or be in a room with people that are all trying to use Gen AI to increase your productivity is just a great place to be at.
Okay, great. All right. And so we also want, if you want more information about what we do here at the School of Continuing Studies, especially with non-credit certificates here, I encourage you to take a look. And of course, since I'm a social media person here, if you want to follow our LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube as well, you'll get um, these links as well in the presentation later. But you can go ahead here now. And then finally, before we get in the Q&A, I want to bring up, since we are in the DC area, this is something that impacts us as well. You may have seen this at other Knowledge at Noons, but back in March, Georgetown launched the Initiative for Federal Workers. So in the downsizing effort, what we are offering here is 30% tuition discount on select certificates, as well as there's discounts for some of the Masters of Professional Studies here at School of Continuing Study as well. Um, and so, in addition to that, we also are doing free career coaching with Dr. Lisa Andrews as well, and you'll receive links to that as well. And she has an event called our Career Catalyst coming up, so you'll hear all about that. But some of the eligible certificates is following. Including today's as well. And here's some of our defined federal workers. So essentially, it's going to go for the next, well, not anymore 12 months, but till March of next year. So we have some free services and we have discounts available as well. So with that, I'm going to stop the share here, and we'll get into our question and answers here. So let me pull that up. All right, so let me go back to some of the ones I saw in the beginning, just so we make sure we get through that. We had one question. I think it was meant to come to you, but it came to me. But it said, "Would you agree that hallucinations seem more likely with cultural linguistic oriented content data?"
Could the person that submitted that question uh, give me a little bit more what your thinking was behind that question?
Sure, and we'll come back to it then if this person responds into it. So. Okay, so while we wait for that, let's see another couple ones here. We had some people commenting about the temps, not knowing that, and then we're interested if you had any feedback on like where can you set the temperature for some of
Yeah.
these
Yeah,
like
there's
ChatGPT.
no official setting. You
Hmm.
just tell whenever you're prompting, set temperature to zero point 0.3 and then give your prompt. So you just manually type it and it will set the temperature for all subsequent promptings until you change it, until you type change temperature.
Sure.
So
And so a follow, kind of not a follow-up, but a different person, Hillary wants to know, do we happen to know what the temperature setting is on the automatic AI overview that now pops up whenever we Google anything? So, do you you got any insights on that one?
I don't know, but I generally think it's from like I rarely Google things anymore. And if I do, the first place I stop is the AI response in Google. But it's generally, it's not, it's in the middle, most definitely. It's not super formal, but it is not extremely conversational. So it's kind of that middle road. So I'm thinking somewhere around zero point 0.5 is probably where it's at.
Okay, great. So hopefully that helped, Hillary. Let's see. And now we'll go into so Craig wants to know, so some of these are still kind of catching up from kind of during the presentation, but um, you were talking about the meeting summaries, and he wanted to know if it was based on the audio recording of the meeting itself. Is that
Yeah,
enough
in
information?
that case, it was most Zoom. You can have there's services that are specific to transcription of meetings that you can invite as an additional user into your meeting, like Otter.ai. You can use that as a third-party service that will come, and they have extended features for meeting summarization and things like that. That's not always present. I don't know the capabilities of Zoom right now. You can get a transcript from Zoom, and you might be able to get summarization, but these other third-party tools go a little bit further and get into sentiment analysis. How do you think the flow of the meeting that's going, the action items that you should take away from the meeting is a little bit that, but it's all based on the recording, the sound recording of the meeting. I haven't yet to see anyone do a video analysis. That would be pretty intense. So
So, okay, there's a lot of feedback from the temperature setting, like including myself. I had no clue this was even a thing before this. Dr. Karen Wagner Clark wants to know, is this temperature setting available for most of the LLMs you were talking a
yeah,
little bit about it before?
they're yeah, it's a LLM independent feature.
Mhm.
It is a feature of the machine learning model itself.
Oh,
Uh, what I could do, there are like three or four other settings, and maybe I will write out a short note, or I'll get LLM to write a short note, and I can provide that to everyone, so you can explore other settings where people are changing how. But temperature is the number one that gives you the most control.
okay, good. All right, so we have the follow-up to that first question here from Melinda. It says, I'm sorry, a little prompt came up in front of it. Okay, follow up to my first question. Language or content that may be culturally specific may not be included in the training of the data, especially if content is based on data that may be a form of misinformation or disinformation.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, if you have to imagine if the if certain information is absent, so certain languages are not included in the original data set, you miss that cultural information or the way things are talked about if it's absent. Um, you also have to take in consideration things that are very rare tend not to play as big of a role in things as possible because you have too much information. If someone put in misinformation and it appears, you know, 100 times out of a billion instances of data that we have regarding that, the model generally doesn't do that. It's more or less the patterns that it sees. It's because for somewhere in there in the data set, there's a pattern that's been established. It could be established nefariously, like there's just a bunch of information regarding it, and it just learns that as being the truth, right? But it's all based on probability. Like in all the data that we have and all the connections that we have, it points more likely to this particular item. And that's just the data that we have, right? It could be done nefariously or whatever, but that's just what it is. And so um, it will make that mistake every once in a while because of that presence. But if it's nefarious, you'd have to do a lot of work in order to have a lot of misinformation present in the data set in order for it to become a prominent response or not factual response. There is something called prompt injection. So that's very nefarious, where you can actually get it to provide incorrect information intentionally. Um, uh, and that's a common pitfall that we're starting to see right now is you can get misinformation based on someone hijacking your prompts. So,
Okay, so we'll move on to our next one here. This one, a direct question. Elizabeth wants to know, she administers a lot of writing tests. We ask candidates not to use AI and to use a platform to check. So, do these changes in temperature settings make a difference in terms of reviewing the document? So, I guess to make, uh, if they change the temperature settings, are they going to be able to slip past these checkers, or is it going to affect it at all?
it depends on the AI that was used to, to actually determine the validity of the information or its or of the origin it comes from AI. They would just hopefully they would have been trained on varying levels of temperature in order to get an idea of what that looks like. Um, um, my as an educator, I feel there has to be a a better way to actually incorporate AI into writing assignments and things like that. Um, uh, uh, which is difficult without question. But going back to the original question, the only way that you would be able to that a student could bypass AI checker is if that AI checker was not trained on varying temperatures itself, so it would know what different responses look like. If that's not the case, then changing temperature could easily elude those. But I would go back to the provider and of that AI checker and see if they um, actually did whenever they trained their models, which they probably will not tell you how they actually trained their models. So.
Okay, so Flaviana wants to know, can we generate the examples of sentiments, the positive, neutral, negative with GPT?
Yes, you can. Um, so the basis for these LLMs is based on natural language processing. So, and this kind of goes back into the history of how these models came about. And some of the earlier questions in natural language processing were things like sentiment. Inherently, these large language models are really good at determining sentiment because of their roots.
Hmm. Okay, so we have, I think, like two more here we'll get through. So this one is from CRP Ed Woford. Sorry if hopefully I got that right. Dr. Graham, successful writer of federal contract proposals. How can I integrate AI tools and methodologies into my federal proposal development and writing process? Also, do you provide individual technical assistance in applying AI to the proposal development and management lifecycle?
Uh, you have to get in. I have 4 jobs already, active active jobs.
Don't worry, you can come to me first, and then if I can't figure it out.
I'm more than happy to take time and spend 30 minutes. Yeah, I'm always open to this. I have office hours and this open to everyone on this call. Every Wednesday, I have office hours. You can email me for a 30-minute slot, and that's every single, even when I'm not teaching, I do that for everyone. So you're more than happy if you want to explore, just need to kind of better understand how to incorporate these tools into your work life. It's all new. Like there's,
hmm
you know, um,
Any
and so,
any starting points though for this person as far as like the
well,
federal, was it federal proposal development and writing?
Yeah, I've had several people in the last cohort for
Hmm.
the Gen AI course. I would say 80% of them were federal, and they were generally writing or taking several. One of the guys was taking several federal proposals that were submitted by companies that had been working with DARPA and kind of building, taking all that together to build another report. And he just used it like any other way you would do content creation. I don't think there was anything special about the way that he approached it. Um, you can always, if you have public information about, formatting of how a proposal should be written, you can use that as an example. I use examples all the time. Like here is an example of a well-written proposal, right? And use that as your template in order to write things. But I don't think there's anything unique, uniquely unique about the federal space.
Okay, great. Well, we keep getting them in, so I will institute that we will have a cutoff, but we'll try to keep getting them in here. So I'm gonna be brief on some of them. Do you have any tips for reviewing AI generated content? Essentially, the concern that verifying things in it, making sure it's accurate, and then they want to know they're concerned about the time savings from generated AI content offset by the time spent fact checking the content that was created. Any tips on that?
Yeah, so my ideal is still more effective. Like the time savings that you get still is good, even if you have to fact check the information. There's still considerable time savings. I use it every day for what I do. The time savings increase is increases with your own personal domain expertise. So when you're working in areas where you are a domain expert, that time saving is greater because you can quickly pick up on things that just don't, make sense. You lose that whenever you're trying to learn. The most work goes into learning something brand new, right? And you at that point you just take it at cost because you figure out that once you do gain expertise in this area, this process will be a lot quicker. So and I think um, that's just the trade-off for learning something new via LLMs, right? As far as tricks to do this, um, um, I think we all have like a second sense, like a sixth sense for when something just seems to be off, seems to be off. Wild claims, um, uh, being checking with what I do is I always gauge myself. Do I feel confident? Can I stand in front of someone and feel confident saying this to them, especially if it's going to make a fundamental difference in how people carry out their work, right? And and so that's kind of my gut check to really go back and look up the information.
Great. All right, so we're going to take one more. I think this is kind of a good stopping point after this. So this question is from Jake, and so they said, I'm working in our company to allow AI within our cybersecurity policies. But due to the market we work in, our staff have to be careful with releasing data into an LLM learning machine. So, do you have any recommendations on perhaps where to look for best practices on policies for more restrictive environments for using AI? Cognizant that it'll be difficult to completely block AI in the modern world. So, what can you say for Jake?
Yeah, so the way for businesses, and this is I work at a subsidiary of John Deere, and I work with the parent company a lot. You would think for a 60,000 person company, they would be at the forefront of AI. They are not by any means. Like their AI implementation is so limited because they do not want to share anyone sharing their data. Things are proprietary. How do you get around that? So my hope is that you can lock down things within your company, like Microsoft does this very well with their suite of tools so that the data never leaves, you know, that institution. But other ways there are, using providers such as Claude that don't share your information or use your information and things like that. As far as cybersecurity go, or even uh, personal AI systems built within, we'll see this built inside of your own computer, right? The information stays on your computer, right? It doesn't leave your computer, right? So at home, I have my own self-built LLMs that I use. Like I don't, the information does not go to the web. It stays local. And so maybe building systems later on where your LLM fits right on your laptop, right? And there's no need to share that information across the web.
Okay, great. So we're approaching our time boundary. So I think I would say this was very successful. Great feedback. Lots of compliments as well. Oh, thank yous are coming in right now. So that's nice to see. So if you thought this was helpful and informative, please share it with others as well. I want to thank you, Dr. Gray, for this presentation, and I'll encourage anyone that if you're interested in connecting and learning here at Georgetown as well, to consider that. So, Dr. Gray, any final thoughts, any words here?
Go out and have fun in it and play with it. Play with as many Gen AI systems as you can imagine that's available. And explore because this isn't going anywhere. More and more they're going to be used in our daily lives and making decisions and doing other things. So I think the entry level is fairly low for technology, and this is why it's been such a big boom. And so take advantage of it and know that you might be the front runners within your organizations that are pushing for these technologies. And I truly believe that they will increase productivity. Right. And so just be willing to kind of step maybe out of your comfort zone in order to explore these technologies. So that's what I will leave you with.
Okay, great. All right, everyone. This has been Knowledge at Noon. Practical approaches to implementing Gen AI in workplace teams. See you all at the next one. Bye.